Channel doesn't do that.
Hey, I should make I don't mean to interrupt the fun, but this is a breaking news story, a serious news story.
What?
A plane has crashed, hold it, into the World Trade Center.
You're kidding!
The World Trade Center is on fire.
No, because once it gets started, what happens?
Imagine being
They
trapped in
built
there.
it better than that hotel.
Well, how are they going to get? They're not going to get hoses up there. They're going to have to rely on the sprinkler
Sprinklers
system.
and all that?
Yeah, well,
And you know how well they work in the city.
But the stairwells are all
You can't drag a hose up there?
It's a rumor. Somebody just called and said that on CNN. A second plane just crashed into one.
Stop it!
A second plane.
That's two different buildings.
That's two
They
different-
are
Look at that,
two
Howard.
buildings, and that is lower.
That's what I
So
said.
it's a terrorist attack,
No,
isn't
they
it?
just that's what they're saying.
It's got to
It's got to be.
Somebody just called in
Oh
with that.
my goodness!
We heard the first explosion. We went outside. We're watching the smoke come out. There's a hole in the side of the building. All of a sudden, maybe, 10 minutes later, there was another plane flying around, and that disappeared into the building also.
Plane into the building.
This is them towelhead bastards.
Well, we don't know who it
We
is.
don't know
I know
yet,
that.
but I got a feeling.
It could be.
You can't say that, but I can say that. It's about time we take these towelhead bastards and throw them out of the damn country.
Well, don't
We're
overreact
too
yet.
nice to people,
Let's
man.
find out who
Take
it
it
is.
easy,
We're going to find
take
out.
it
Once I
easy.
find out,
Then we'll get crazy.
then we'll get crazy.
I got a lot of friends that work in that building. I'm sitting here watching it burning right now.
I know,
And
Joey.
The
We all know
attack
people
happened.
down there.
I'm watching Fox Network here, and I just saw a thing that said that FBI is almost verified that there has been a hijacking early this morning before the crash.
Really?
Oh, so they hijacked the plane.
Oh my goodness!
There was actually two planes.
Yeah, right. Two planes.
And it's actually ridiculous. Watch it on a film. Actually, watch it on TV now. It's just.
Oh, this is so aggravating.
I don't understand how all of a sudden one day it's beautiful, next minute no, everything's just ruined.
Ever hit the world.
It is the one. It's certainly the biggest travesty in our lifetime.
Oh,
I cannot
absolutely.
believe it. I'm disgusted by humans, and we better take care of business, or we're all lost.
Is
The only
Congressman
thing that
Gary
spread faster than COVID has been misinformation, baseless vaccine claims infecting social media.
The truth is that COVID vaccines cause...
Actually, let's stop it right there. We don't need to add to the problem. YouTube had already cracked down on damaging lies about the COVID vaccines, removing 130,000 pieces of content. Now it's extended the ban to misinfo about all vaccines.
It's good to see them do this now, but anti-vax content has been allowed on the platform and has spread through the platform for more than a decade at this point. It's been one of the major sources of misinformation on YouTube.
Conspiracy theories and pseudoscience have always been a problem, but they've exploded on sites like YouTube. This kind of virality simply wasn't a problem a century ago.
What up, fam? I'm hearing from my phrenologist that this so-called Spanish flu is nothing more than a disruption of the humans. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
But there's already been a backlash, Russia threatening to ban YouTube altogether after state-backed broadcaster RT had its German language channel blocked. High-profile anti-vaxxers like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., yes, the son of this guy,
There is a new generation.
have also railed against the ban.
There is no instance in history when censorship and secrecy has advanced either democracy or public health.
Freedom of speech isn't the same as freedom of reach. No one is stopping anti-vaxxers from going out there and spreading their message.
This is America.
The difference...
So people who live in America have many inalienable rights, from freedom of religion to freedom of thought to freedom to take all kinds of actions. But let's be clear. The limits always kick in if you endanger other people. This has gotten a little confused these days, so let me put it as simply as possible. You have the right to believe that you drive even better when you're drunk. You can think that. You don't have the right to drive drunk in America without consequences because it endangers other people. There are many ways to get into this. Right now, we're thinking along the lines of COVID and vaccinations because this is the exact point that a sadly newly widowed woman in Iowa is making this week. Her vaccinated husband dying of COVID after spending time with unvaccinated people indoors who refuse to wear masks.
I have family members that don't agree with me. And I guess that's their right. But Gary and I had rights too. And he doesn't have them anymore.
She's not alone in how she's feeling. A lot of this does come back to what we think and what we feel. It has been a devastating year. Many were locked down. Many were dreaming of the type of thing that would let us all out freely, vaccines. And there are growing reports of how people who are Unvaccinated, and aggressively so, sometimes not following safety rules and other precautions, are drawing scorn, contempt, and resentment among the many people who have played by the rules. Now, there's more than one way to come at this, but we should be careful not to be overly euphemistic about everything. We don't endorse everything Howard Stern says around here, but boy, did he tap a nerve recently, getting a lot of headlines after saying basically what many people feel, putting words to anger.
All the heads in our country who won't get vaccinations. What the what, I mean, make it all mandatory. Now we're trapped in a country with imbeciles. We have no time for idiots in this country anymore.
Straightforward, somewhat mournful, but somewhat angry. And there are new signs that this type of anger, I bet you've seen it, I bet you've heard about it, may also become a political dynamic.
Second piece of my plan is continuing to protect the vaccinated. For the vast majority of you who've gotten vaccinated, I understand your anger at those who haven't gotten vaccinated. I understand the anxiety about getting a breakthrough case. But as the science makes clear, if you're fully vaccinated, you're highly protected from severe illness, even if you get COVID-19. In fact, recent data indicates there is only one confirmed positive case per 5,000 fully vaccinated Americans per day.
I have family members that don't agree with me. And I guess that's their right. But Gary and I had rights too. And he doesn't have them anymore.
The face of New York.
Teeth out. I've seen the entire lower half of Manhattan just completely covered in smoke, debris, dust, everything well south of Canal Street is just completely and covered in this smoke and dust at this time. There is not anything recognizable of what were the two trade towers, nothing standing out from those clouds of dust.
They're gone now. Yeah, I mean, that's the end of the World Trade Center.
What have we done so bad to deserve this?
No, nothing.
Now we're going to go to
the only thing we've done is
look at that. Look at how the debris has rained down on the street.
Isaac, you're on the air.
Hey, Howard. Listen, I was in Israel for a year. This stuff happens every single day.
I know. Well, now it's been brought home, and this is what the Israelis have been saying, and really the world has not allowed them to wipe out these terrorists. But
to be completely honest with you, it's like it's almost like to say that all Arabs are bad, that's wrong. But to say that we should stop ourselves from, retaliating against Hamas and the PLO and organizations like that, that's only purpose is to destroy. In other words, talk about human rights, fine. But this is not about human rights. This is about terrorism, and you have to fight an army with weapons. There's no way.
Yeah, no, you got to take out countries. Frank, you're on the air.
On COVID misinformation, what's your message to platforms like Facebook?
They're killing people. I mean, it really, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
To make sure that everybody continues to let us know where those folks are. If you've observed recurring violations of the Safer at Home order, please continue to let us know at coronavirus.lacity.org/business violation. You know the old expression about snitches? Well, in this case, snitches get rewards. We want to thank you for turning folks in and making sure we are all safe.
I want to talk about COVID because it's also a big week. Every week seems to be when it comes to COVID. Couple of headlines to run by you. Number one, Pfizer has submitted the data regarding its vaccine being allegedly safe and having a robust response in 5 to 11-year-olds. And I understand living in New York, now I'm in Connecticut, but I was living in New York for 17 years. There are a lot of people who are like, I want it for my kid, I want it. You want it for your kid? I get it. Okay, fine. I'm okay if Pfizer says and the FDA says 5 to 11-year-olds can have it. What makes me nervous about this is because if the FDA gives them, it would just be emergency use authorization. It wouldn't be the full Magilla yet. They're going to mandate it. That's what's going to come next. They're going to mandate it. And the next thing you know, I've now got my oldest son just had his birthday. So I have an 8, 10, and 12-year-old. We already just got the email from the school about my 12-year-old. And my 8 and 10-year-old are going to be forced to get this damn jab once they make it permanent after emergency use. And I feel like my choice is going to be taken away, and I don't want that.
Yeah. I think that's the key point there is choice. I chose to get the vaccine early on, back in whatever it was, March or April. That was my choice. Anytime you have the government trying to exercise their mandate and force people to do something, force people to get this vaccine, you take away people's individual right to choose, and you also kind of spur a reaction from people saying, hold on a second, you're not even allowing me the possibility of examining information, doing my own research, and making the decision that's best for me and for my family. And oh, by the way, you're going to tell me that if I don't do what you're telling me to do, that I'm going to lose my job, or that I can't go out to eat with my family, that I can't, go into certain places, that I can't get on a plane and fly somewhere.
That my kid can't go to school.
Can't go to school. This is, all of these rules and things that they're putting out are a means for government control. And where does it end? Where does it end? And so again, for me, my personal choice, I got the vaccine. I'm glad I got it. Other people, for whether it's religious reasons or personal reasons, or because they've had COVID and their antibodies are so strong that they don't feel that they need to get the vaccine, medical reasons. I mean, there's so many different situations that individuals will take into account. That they need to be able to make their own personal choice, and they should not be put on lists essentially to dictate what they can do and where they can go. It's just set such a dangerous precedent.
It's so crazy where, today, for example, New York City has set this Friday as its vaccine deadline for all school staffers. So they say there's roughly 7,000 teachers who are about to be fired, roughly 17,000 Department of Education staffers overall. These are, janitors and so on. These are not rich people who are going to lose their job. By the way, no unemployment insurance. Our governor has said you don't get you get fired and you get no unemployment insurance. These people have already been through hell these past couple of years thanks to COVID. And it doesn't matter if they have natural immunity. Meanwhile, I look at what just came out of the news in Italy. Italy's pushing vaccine passports, for lack of a better term, right? If you want to be in Italy, if you want to work in Italy, you got to have had the vaccine unless you can show that you've got the antibodies from natural immunity. They recognize that's another way of protecting oneself. And it's the only benefit of having gotten COVID. Then you look at the UK. They say, we don't feel comfortable giving the vaccine to 12 to 15-year-olds. We're not there yet. As 16 and up, we recommend one jab because all the complications come after the second jab. You say you take either of those positions here in America, you're an anti-science freak who wants to kill people.
Yeah, and that there's two things I want to say on this. Number one is exactly that how everything surrounding COVID has become politicized. Where, hey, if I want to go out, or if I say I want to wear a mask, or if I'm going to get the vaccine, then obviously I'm a Democrat, right? Or if you don't want to get the vaccine, or if you don't want to wear a mask, then you're Republican. And both sides are attacking each other because these are the characterizations that are being put out there. And there's no understanding really between the two. You're either for or against. You're this or you're that. And these two sides are pitted against each other. So politicizing this, I think, is from the very beginning been a big problem. The lies that we've been told from the very, very beginning about COVID have furthered kind of the distrust that people have from the very beginning, with Fauci saying, well, masks don't work. Masks don't work. Meanwhile, his real motive was, hey, we've got to save these N95 medical grade masks for our healthcare workers because they need it for protection, because they work.
Yeah, the so-called noble lie.
Exactly. The hypocrisy and the lies and the recent thing. Well, hey, big tech and some in our government, they don't want us talking about natural immunity. Why? Why aren't they looking at the studies from Israel? Why aren't they doing studies themselves to recognize, hey, these antibodies that come from those who have had COVID, natural immunity is a scientific effect. Right. It's not some made up thing. We should talk about it. We should examine it. We should study it. And so you look at how they wonder, why are people so distrustful of things that are coming out of our government? it's because of the lies and the misinformation, the disinformation that they themselves are propagating. The stuff around the monoclonal antibodies, Regeneron, the things that, we see DeSantis doing in Florida, the federal government and the Biden-Harris administration criticizing, rather than recognizing, hey, this is a scientific treatment that, if administered very early on in one's infection, can prevent serious implications and hospitalization. A fact. Why is it? And then now that they've seen how it's been successful in places like Florida, now the federal government, the administration say, okay, well, now we want to make sure that everybody has access to Regeneron, which really leads to the point here about how we need to make sure that the American people are getting facts, that they're able to make the best decision for themselves, and that they have the freedom to do so.
Today is a significant deadline. It reflects my priority to just stop this virus dead in its tracks. We are over it. We are done. We want to move on. And the only way we can do that is to ensure that everyone is vaccinated, but particularly individuals who are taking care of the people who are sick. My job number one in this state is to keep people safe. Clear, simple. There's no way to cloud that. There's no gray area. I need to keep people in this state safe. And we'll be nation leading with our mandate, which strikes at midnight tonight, when everyone is expected in a hospital in the state of New York or a healthcare facility to have been vaccinated. I will be signing an executive order to give me the emergency powers necessary to address the shortages where they occur. That's going to allow me to deploy the National Guard, who are medically trained, deploy people who've been retired, who may have had a license lapse, bring in people from elsewhere. That is not my first position, though, my friends. My desire is to have the people who've been out there continue to work in their jobs, work in them safely, and to all the other healthcare workers who are vaccinated, they also deserve to know that the people they're working with.
A bombshell study released last week shows those previously infected with SARS-CoV-2 have natural immunity that offers 13 times more protection against the Delta variant than vaccination alone. The findings are from Tel Aviv. They followed over 700,000 people that were broken up into 3 different groups: those who were vaccinated with 2 doses of Pfizer, those who had recovered from a previous infection, and those who had recovered and received only 1 dose of the Pfizer vaccine. Now, the study found that those who had recovered from COVID were 13 times less likely to end up reinfected, concluding that natural immunity confers longer lasting and stronger protection against infection, symptomatic disease, and hospitalization. Now, though the researchers did see some increased benefit for those previously infected who also received 1 dose of the Pfizer vaccine, the researchers concluded the difference was statistically insignificant. So why would those who have natural immunity have a more robust immune response? The researchers hypothesize that it's because of B and T cell memory and the fact people who recovered from the virus are exposed to the entire virus, not just the spike protein the vaccines expose the body to. The study is yet to be peer-reviewed, but the findings are consistent with other studies and public health data. In July, the Israeli Health Ministry released data showing that of the nearly 850,000 Israelis known to have recovered from the virus, there were only 72 instances of reinfection, showing those with natural immunity were 6.5 times less likely to be affected by the Delta variant than those who were fully vaccinated. In May, the World Health Organization found that the immune systems of more than 95% of people who recovered from COVID-19 had durable memories of the virus that remained fairly stable over time, only declining modestly at 6 to 8 months after infection. Also, 6 studies, which encompass nearly 1 million people from Qatar to Denmark to the U.S. Marines, all found that the range of reduction of reinfection from COVID-19 was between 82% to 95%, and found that naturally induced immunity resulted in extremely low rates of hospitalization and death in the event of repeat infection. Now, in the beginning, I said
that had 2.5 million patients and found that the vaccinated group was actually 7 times more likely to get infected with COVID than the people who had gotten COVID naturally.
Senator, I'd have to get back to you on that one. I'm not familiar with that study.
Well, you think you might want to be if you're going to travel the country insulting the millions of Americans, including NBA star Jonathan Isaac, who have had COVID, recovered, look at a study with 2.5 million people and say, well, you know what? It looks like my immunity is as good as a vaccine or not. And in a free country, maybe I ought to be able to make that decision. Instead, you've chosen to travel the country calling people like Jonathan Isaac and others, myself included, flat earthers. We find that very insulting, goes against the science. Are you a doctor or a medical doctor?
I've worked over 30 years on health policy.
You're not a medical doctor. Do you have a science degree? And yet you travel the country calling people flat earthers who have had COVID, looked at studies of millions of people, and made their own personal decision that their immunity they naturally acquired is sufficient. But you presume somehow to tell over 100 million Americans who have survived COVID that we have no right to determine our own medical care. You alone are on high, and you've made these decisions, a lawyer with no scientific background, no medical degree. This is an arrogance coupled with an authoritarianism that is unseemly and un-American. You, sir, are the one ignoring the science. The vast preponderance of scientific studies, dozens and dozens, show robust, long-lasting immunity after COVID infection. Even the CDC does not recommend measles vaccine if you have measles immunity. The same was true for smallpox. But you ignore history and science to shame the flat earthers, as you call them. You should be ashamed of yourself and apologize to the American people for being dishonest about naturally acquired immunity. You want more people to choose vaccination? So do I. You want to lessen vaccine hesitancy? So do I. You want to have that happen? Quit lying to people about naturally acquired immunity. Quit lording it over people, acting as if these people are deplorable and unwashed. Try persuasion instead of government cudgels. Try humility instead of arrogance. Try freedom instead of coercion. But most of all, try understanding that there's no more basic medical right than deciding what we inject into our bodies. Today, after hearing that millions of people in a study show without a doubt that there's a great deal of immunity from getting it naturally, do you want to apologize to the 100 million Americans who suffered through COVID, survived, have immunity, and yet you want to hold them down and vaccinate them? Do you want to apologize for calling those people flat earthers?
Senator, I appreciate your question and appreciate that everyone has their opinion. We follow the facts and the science at HHS. We use the expertise of the medical professionals, the scientists at HHS to make decisions. It's a team effort, and we rely on what is on the ground showing us results.
Thank you.